author on Python and geospatial stuff. And I guess I'm back to being a public speaker because I'm starting to get requests just in time for the Delta variant, probably to shut all that down. I'm also an ultra runner, and I have to say, and I haven't said this lately, I really appreciate so many of you reaching out. A lot of the people just getting started and just asking your questions. It's no bother, and it's been a lot of fun. So I'm Bonnie, and I'm done talking.
Well, thanks so much for that, Bonnie. And hi, everyone. I am Juliana McMillan-Wilhoit. I am based just north of Chicago in Lake County, Illinois. And I call myself a cartographer of change for both people and organizations. I do both professional development work for geospatial data analysts, but I also do geospatial analysis for mission-driven organizations. And so trying to figure out exactly what that means now. But yeah, that's a tiny bit about me and the work that I do. So yeah, so we meet every week at this time on Clubhouse, just have a conversation about things geospatial. So I'm really grateful for this community that we have, and yeah, that we get to come together every week and chat.
And also, I don't know, did we change what we were going to talk about, Juliana, or no one knows but us, I guess?
Yeah, yes, exactly.
Because I just wanted to say that what we had sort of talked about among ourselves was maybe talking about some books and resources that we all use, and then open it up for your discussion. And what I did is I just took a stack of my top, I don't know, the ones I'm always pulling off the shelf, and took a snapshot of it and put it on Twitter, just so that we, if I when I mention them, if you like any of them, you can, like, find them there, so we don't have to figure out how to capture what we're all talking about.
Which I am super excited for this because Bonnie, I don't know, maybe a few months ago, shared a stack of her books with me. And I found some utter gems in there. And I always love finding new books and new things to explore. So I am pretty excited. So Bonnie, do you want to start by talking about your books?
Sure. The funny thing is, they might be totally different books, because I was trying to I looked over on the other side, and those are more of the books that I recommend, when we're having discussions. Some of these aren't exactly what you would think of when you think of GIS. So, yes, the first one was Phishing for Fools, and it's the economics of manipulation and deception. And it sort of like explains a little bit of economics in a way of, how some of the numbers and variables and the way we look at it can be deceptive. And that's really important if you're building, a map or a visualization, because a lot of the time, in fact, with this book I'm writing, I take a lot of layers to teach people how to use certain platforms. So I'm bringing in all different types of data. Some of it's CSV, some of it's, uh, stuff from the Bureau of Labor and Statistics. So it's really important to know what you're adding to the pudding, right? You need to know what's in all of that. What's part of that data set that you may not think of. In fact, I was just working on something in San Francisco where they were calculating these areas of strategic need, is what they were calling it. And one of the measures to be, part of this block of neighborhoods or this community was not having a car. And I'm thinking, well, I lived in San Francisco in Nob Hill, which is one of the nicer areas, and I wish I hadn't had a car. It's smart not to have a car because it costs almost as much as your rent to park the darn thing. So that's not really a stupid, that measure to me could be sort of short sighted. So that's just an example of why I do a lot of look there. My other book is the PyQGIS Programmer's Guide. And you may think, well, I'm not a programmer. What do I need that for? But one of the reasons why it's really important, and it's become important for me, is as the projects have gotten bigger and I'm doing more scripting, and this is only if you're a Python person. There's a template in QGIS, for example, that just it kind of tells you how to use it. So if you're building out scripts and you want to save them and you're building a bigger project, it's nice to know how to interact with iFace, which is the widget that allows you to access QGIS using Python. And my other book is Geographica. Many of you probably have heard of this book. It's a world atlas and encyclopedia,
I
and
have
it is
never heard of it, so I'm glad you're bringing it up.
oh, I heard of it on Daniel's podcast. Somebody was talking about it, so I was like, oh, and then I went to a used book sale. There it was. I had to knock over a nun to get it from her, but I have it. No, I didn't. But I mean, I had to grab it really quick because people were eyeballing it, and I was like, I'll take that. Thank you. It's big and thick, and it's got beautiful pictures, and it makes you think of what sort of information, like the attributes that you might be able to find when you're looking in some of these huge geographic databases, what data may have traveled along with that shapefile. And then there's a whole series of these Esri guides, but the one that I use all the time is the Esri Guide to GIS Analysis, Volume 3. um, it's pretty good. It's pretty good. I mean, it's not so much a recipe as it is like do your own thing, but make sure you're doing this too. And it's modeling suitability, movement, and interaction. And I think it's just I have the whole series, but they're not cheap. And if you were going to get just one, I really love this one.
Yeah, I have one and two, and I've used
Oh,
two a lot, and have had on my Christmas list and wish list for a while. Number three, and I probably just need to, bite the bullet and buy it. That's hard when you can't just like flip through it at a bookstore.
yeah. It's a great resource. Sometimes when I'm on my bike, because I used to do triathlons too, and I'll just open up a book and sit there for a couple hours. And so I keep them stacked up there. And just two more. The last one's really quick, but this one to me is really important. And I think I just shared it with Hannah. It's called Data Visualization with an S because it's by Andy Kirk. It's a handbook for data driven design. And there's actually another edition of this. But what I love about this is I'm often asked to review, say, Tableau books, people that are writing about Tableau, which I love. I have to admit, I don't use it as much now that I work more in geospatial stuff. It's just easier for me to use the, QGIS or ArcGIS, but I do like the Mapbox integration, and I do use TabPy a lot with Tableau. But what I like about this book is it's more evergreen. It's not going to confuse you while software continues to update and evolve, and you're going to be like, oh, this book was written with this version of Tableau, and I have this version. You know what I mean? So this is in fact, this is the book that when I speak and teach workshops, this is the textbook. This is the textbook I used in university. Um, and it's a little, this is the book I give my students have to get for the workshops because it is just, I haven't found anything better. So if data viz is your thing, I really think you need that on your bookshelf. You can get the new one. I'm sure the newer one. I'm sure this version of this one is probably less expensive, and I think he also did a funny one that I don't think you can get anymore, and I have it. But it was about something to do with Seinfeld, where this data analysis that he did with Seinfeld, how something about conversations or who was on in scenes. It was the analytics he had to use to do that was brilliant. And the last one is just fun. It's called Plot It, a literary atlas. And what I love about it is it'll take like works of literature like Moby Dick, and then it maps out where everybody was, in a scene by scene, like where this person was, where this person was, where they went, what they ate. So it's really good. What I thought was funny about it is like Ebenezer Scrooge, time traveler. So they showed like where he was, and then they have Hamlet scene 2, and you get to see, you know, where's Horatio right now? Where's the priest? Where's Osric? It's kind of esoteric, but it's super fun, and the pictures are hysterical. Um, and some of them are more serious than that. Some of the works of literature in there, but it shows you never take yourself too seriously, and you can see something. I saw some design ideas that I used in some maps that I delivered to a client, and they were quite excited to receive them. So that's mine for now. We can talk
Oh my
about.
goodness, Bonnie, I am so in love with some of those things. And I had seen that literary atlas and considered purchasing it, but wasn't totally sure. But I'm definitely going to add that to my list of books to at least get from the library, because I always love sort of books that will help inspire me, and that can just help me look at, good data visualization or just creative ways to represent problems.
Yeah, that's the big thing it does, is the creative way, because sometimes you're trying to display something that's not like X and Y coordinate or projection, but it does have a bit of a where this is happening does have a bit of relevance, and you can do it in a really artful way, because I don't want to confuse people when they're looking at a map where they think, well, this is a geographic coordinate, and then what is this thing? Well, if you can change the styling of it a little bit, they kind of know, that you've made a switch. And once again, and I'm about to shut up. Once again, if you want to know where these books are, I put them on LinkedIn too, in the announcement for this meeting. It's in the comments, the one that I originally put out, and it's over in Twitter on one of the announcements for the club. It's the image that you'll see, so you don't even have to click on my face. You could just see the books listed
Well,
there.
that's great. If you don't know how to connect with us, if you are a new person here, I do just want to put out a plug for our website, which is www.geospatialconnections with an s.com. There's not a ton that's there. You can sign up for our mailing list, as well as you can get links to all of our different social media profiles. So if you're not connected with Bonnie on LinkedIn or on Twitter, you can go, find her through that website. Again, I just want to remind everyone that this room is being recorded. Just sort of putting that out there for when you end up coming, if you want to join the conversation in a bit. But Bonnie, just sort of piggybacking off of the last book I think it was the last book that you talked about. So a book that has or two books that have really impacted me are it's called Seattleness and Portlandness, which are cultural atlases of Portland and Seattle. Which the Portland book is far more map centric, and the Seattle one is far more infographic central. Um, and both of these books just have such great ways of visualizing data in a way to tell the story of the city. But they also impacted me very much in that I have gone through the process. Last summer, I worked on creating a cultural atlas of Chicago, where I live, with a group of students. And um, I'm in the process of figuring out what the next step with that is, and have had some conversations about developing out more of a curriculum. But those two books have just really, really impacted me, both in terms of the visualization, as well as just realizing some really creative ways that you can tell the story of place. So I have my Portlandness book open right now, and like there's an example of a map that's called the Sounds of the City, which is just like the decibel levels as somebody went on a walk, which just really tells you something really unique about the place. Or the issues of homelessness, right? There's all sorts of different issues that are sort of covered in this book, and that's part of why I love it so much. I'm Juliana, and I'm done speaking.
What about any of you guys? Tim, Bruce, do you have any books? I mean, we could also do some stuff that we like online, or I'm open.
Non-geospatial books, Bonnie?
Well, I mean, just there's so many books I use for my geospatial work that on the surface wouldn't look like a direct, you know, connection. But in my mind, they are. Like some of the books I listed before you joined are like, books on manipulation on economic data, an Esri book, which is a little more of a direct line, a Python book, a book on literary maps, and, just a really solid book on data viz that I recommend for people that work in data visualization. So it can be anything. I've been
So
reading
I guess
Walden. I've been reading Walden, um, and a lot of that stuff, to me reminds me of being observant. That sort of a thing. This book called Walden and Civil Disobedience by Henry David Thoreau. I mean, like that's nothing that I heard about when I was reading it in school, but it's by him and it's amazing.
So one other book that I'll throw out there is called Designing Your Life, and then there's another book called Designing Your Work Life by Dave Evans and Bill Burnett. And I'm really lucky that this year I'm actually going through a program that's led by Dave Evans. But it's about how do you apply design thinking principles, which is the idea of sort of having this process of understanding people's needs, prototyping a solution, and coming up with a solution. How can you really apply design thinking to your life? And for me, it just really helped make the design thinking process make a lot more sense as opposed to being something that was way more abstract. And it's really helped me both as a business owner, as a coach, and as a human really think about the ways I'm using my moments to really live my best life. But also, it's really given me a framework that I then now apply to doing geospatial analysis. So I highly recommend those books.
Well, that's cool. Hey, so just to add to the conversation, and it's not has nothing to do with the geospatial component, other than the fact that we all have to be leaders, and that I really love this book called Extreme Ownership by Jocke Willink and Leif Babin. I know that the whole Navy SEAL thing is a little overdone, but the way they present information on leadership and the kinds of principles that they use um, in their own careers and that they're kind of putting out there for us to consider is just really effective because they give you some real world examples from their time in Iraq, and then they kind of show you how to implement it. And like one principle that just hit me like a ton of bricks, it's something I hadn't really thought about that much, is the principle of detachment and being able to take a step back from the situation and look at it from a 30,000 foot level, take in all the information, and then make decisions based on that new perspective. And so I just really love the book. It's been something that's been really helpful for me. And I know as we all have to kind of lead ourselves, our own lives, and lead other people in our GIS journey, these principles I think can be super helpful in helping us to make good decisions and to do good work as leaders. So that's one of my favorites. I always will revert back like once a year. I always read Seven Habits of Highly Effective People because I have to rework my personal uh, every year and see, what's crept in that has caused me to be less effective. Where can I change my habits and the things that I do to align more closely with those principles in that book that I've always been very well served by. So, if you've never read that book, you should give it a shot.
You know what you would like, Bruce? This is a funny project I did with a group of up and coming data analysts, not even specifically geospatial, and we all created user guides because I have a user guide that I give my clients because a user guide is like it's showing you how to use a particular product. I am basically a product to you if you're hiring me to do a task. So I created this funny user guide. I was dead serious, but it wasn't like really pithy. It was just like things that I anticipate, things that I expect, and it was very, specific. And we had so much fun developing these things. But it makes you ask a lot of questions about yourself. What is it that you're offering, even if
Was
you're
that
not self-employed? Yep.
Was that a blog, Bonnie, or was that an actual like? I mean, was it something that you published? What was
I
it
think
exactly?
I talked about it in a blog, but I did it with this group. And I have to see if I can find it, but it's a lot of fun. I mean, we sit down and we write business proposals like our life depended on it, but we never think about, you know, a user manual. You know, how is our product, service, or application supposed to be used? What's my expectation when I sit down with you and we discuss this project? You know, how do you know? And I think I've told this group before that my first data client, you know, got exactly what he asked for. It was not what he wanted. So the user guide shows you when I have all the information I need, you have information about how I like to work, and then it's a lot more harmonious and it's a lot of fun and it lends itself very well for technical consultation.
That
But we can talk
concept.
about that another day.
No, no, but that's such a cool concept. I don't know if you've been following the series the video series I did on LinkedIn about the personal value proposition. It kind of reminds me of that, where you do some deep thinking about, what is it that motivates me? What is it you could do to get the best out of me? It causes you to
Oh,
be
it is. Yeah.
introspective. That's really a cool idea. I
Maybe
love that
that's
idea.
what made me think about it, Bruce, because I thought that you and Tim would like it because he does this woo woo stuff. I don't know what it is. I'm not saying that to be. I, I honestly just don't.
It's magic. That's what I do.
I'm
Is
not
magic.
like I love hearing Juliana speak about her method and her everything because I'm just like garbage over here. I guess I'm like raccoons in a garbage can. I pull out the tasty bits; those work for me for a while. You know, that's my style.
Squirrel, squirrel, squirrel.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really like that. I'm going to sit down this afternoon actually and chart, kind of scope a user guide for myself. That's so cool. I think I'm going to do that.
I know that one of the big consulting firms, I think it's Bain, actually has like people who you work with on projects. Right. And so that's in an environment where you're churning, right, where teams are constantly changing, but they actually have to write to reviews of you in terms of how to best, like, I work best with Bruce under like these circumstances. And so that there's sort of like this collective creation of a user guide. And that's like something that they're really known for.
I'm going to send this to you, Bruce. No, I'm going to put it on Twitter.
So Bonnie, on a case like this, I love this idea. Where you when you build the user guide, you sit down with your customer. Is that correct?
Yeah, 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 definitely.
Because one thing the customer does all the time is change their mind. That's why, like when you said that we gave them exactly what they want, what they asked for, but not what they wanted. How do you handle that in your user guide? I mean, do you have like a clause or like an area like, hey, we can always rethink this anytime a new idea pops up?
Well, we do a lot of check-ins. We do a lot of what is it that I can't remember when you sit down and everyone puts a number with the Fibonacci sequence to tell you how hard something's going to be.
Yeah, planning poker.
No, no. If I could think of, they use the Fibonacci sequence, but it's called something we all know. Like if we're all sitting around a room, I don't know why I can't think of this
Like
because
agile, like a stand up.
yes,
Like
thank
okay,
you. Oh my God, thank you. So it's something like that because a lot of time that's why it's got to be Fibonacci because you can't just say, well, 2 days. Really, is it 2 days?
right.
So we start talking about like the first thing I ever did was the clock starts ticking, people, when you've given me these three items that I need to do my job. I'm not going to start without you. And then you come back with this rescope and you're covered by saying, like, well, we never really, but because you have timelines, the time is tick, 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 ticking. They're not giving you the stuff. So you have to start in some manner or form, or you're not going to be able to manage the timeline. So this was my way of addressing that sort of thing, if that makes sense.
That's great. And every user guide is different, right? I mean, because every customer is different.
It depends. If I like the customer, sometimes I reuse some if I don't think they're going to get the idea or I'm not going to get out of it what I need. But They tend to amuse me more than anyone. So yeah, I like to make them fresh.
Well, I came in a little late. I apologize. But just to kind of address the witchcraft I've been involved in, the book I'd like to recommend for the group, and if you know me, you know what I'm about to say, is there's a book called Personal Kanban: Mapping Work and Navigating
You're
Oh
Life.
my goodness, what? You're recommending that?
what's
Shocking.
this Kanban stuff you're talking about? I haven't heard.
Exactly. No, it has changed my life. I mean, to the
Oh,
point where this is all I do these days, and I love it. And I think that it's a fantastic book. I mean, the part that where it calls about navigating life, you can do this for, if you have a to-do list, you can visualize it. So we as spatial thinkers, I think, really we can handle this. Really have the idea, like, I want to see the work in front of me, and this is the best way to do it. So again, I cannot recommend it enough. And I'll just leave it there, if anyone has any questions. Now, I do have one thing that I just want to throw out here to the panel and to the audience that I thought was really interesting. I was in a virtual conference a couple weeks ago, and one of the keynote speakers, Mona Chabalabi, she works,
oh yeah.
okay, she does a lot of visualizations
By hand.
by hand. But one of the points that she made, and I wanted to just kind of get your feeling on this, we as the geospatial community like to put up, here's a cool tool for you to make your own decision. And she warns that there's a danger there, right? Sometimes you want people to know the data that you want them to know, right? Don't let them come up with their own conclusion all the time, because it may be wrong or it may not be what you wanted. And so that's what she kind of based her visualizations on, is that there really should only be one answer here. I guess it depends on the context and the subject matter. But, and I think she uses an example. There was a cool, probably some, geospatial data science person put together dog names in Manhattan. And they put a visualization out there, and it was useless. You couldn't tell, but she just took the top 10 dog names and made a cool hand drawn visualization of it, because nobody cares about the 50th dog name. They just want to know what the top dog names are. So I just found it really interesting. And Bonnie, for you particularly, when you do these data visualization projects, are you letting the consumer come up with their own conclusions, or are you telling them the answer?
Well, here's the thing. There's a right way and a wrong way. I don't ever tell someone this is the conclusion you should come to by looking at this, or here's what you're supposed to do. What I do is I look at all the data, I look at what's hiding up in the shelves, I pull everything down, we look at it, and we do some exploratory analysis. And it's a little obvious where stuff's going. I don't think that's my job. Even when I teach workshops and I'm looking at, redlining in, what's that one I just did? I did a really good one. I can't remember where it was. It was in California. Just really looking at, I don't sit there and say, see, you need to come in here and you need to do this and you need to do this and you should be feeling this. I don't. I just use a lot of transparency. I teach people how to hold attention. Like, I would conflict with Mona on this, because it's okay to want this to be the story, but to acknowledge that this data is out there too, and to present it all and be transparent. And if you're doing it with good analytics, it's outside of you what matters, or what's, what the data is showing you, or what's correlated, or what's causative. I mean, I shouldn't be able to manipulate that. I mean, I'm not a marionette puppeteer person. I'm just, I'm better at finding data. I am better at cleaning it, and I'm better at asking a data question. And we're going to do that together, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, one of the big things, so I worked for the US federal government for a number of years, and we built a decision support tool. And one of the things that was really hard for me in that was realizing there was a support tool and that we were helping develop a recommendation, but that we always had to frame it in terms of, the tool is like providing this recommendation, but that you can obviously choose something that's different. And then creating ambiguity, as well as sort of things within the user interface to make sure that was really explicitly communicated, that, you know, you as the general or the whoever, really you're making the decision. That's in part how the Army works, but also, right, the data is just there to help fuel the human.
And I didn't mean to put words in Moda's mouth. Maybe I misinterpreted some of it. So,
Oh
Bonnie, if
no
you
no
know
no.
Moda, just don't go, well, Tim said you're a.
Yeah, that's this guy that you got to beat up. No, but I'll tell you something that she does that I say in a lot of my data workshops when I'm working with people and I know we're going to be using data. This is something she did say. The reason she uses hand drawings is she wants you to always know there's a human involved, and with that human, and that interaction, there's also biases, unintended or intended. You know, she just, I'm going to screw up. You know, this is how I interpreted the data. This is not like machine, and all data is biased. People freak out when I tell them, like, not mine. I'm like, yes, if you're a human and you selected that data set and this data set and brought this data set to the question, it's all biased. So all the only hope you have is to be transparent and to be able to hold those tensions. So you're not walking around, what you think is clear communication in data viz, but it's just propaganda for your own agenda. And I put the cover for the old user guide in the Twitter, in the Twitter comment, so you can see, so you can see it. It's kind of funny now that I look at it. I don't know how to send things here on. I know I'm supposed to be able to do that, but I'm afraid if I change the screen on the Geo Connections Club, you'll all disappear. So
We won't go away, but people can always click on Bonnie's face and then go next to her face. There's going to be a little paper airplane. You can always click that if you want to direct message her or refresh anyone else. But yeah, just thank you so much, everyone, for being here. We're the Geospatial Connections Club. We meet every week on Wednesdays at this time, contrary to what I may post on social media. This room is being recorded, which is just a way for us to be able to share this information with other people who aren't able to make it live. So just want you to be aware of that. We're co-led by myself, Juliana, Bonnie McClain, Bruce Buxton, and Tim Nolan, all of whom are just really passionate about all sorts of different things within the world of geospatial. So anyway, thank you all for coming. And if you want to connect with any of the moderators, I invite you to go over to www.geospatialconnections.com, get our social media profiles, or sign up for our mailing list. Oh, no, Bruce, you went off mute. I'll let you go.
Oh, I just wanted to encourage anybody who's in the audience. I would love to hear some of the books and things that you're reading. So please jump in if you have an opportunity to.
I also would love
Raise
that.
raise raise your hand and we'll bring you up because I'd love to hear from everybody that's down there. And particularly Juliana, I kind of wanted you to expose your husband to the audience. Maybe you could ask him to introduce himself.
Oh, no, my husband is my iPad sitting downstairs so that I can
Oh,
record this.
oh, I got it. I kept thinking, well, we got to hear from Jefferson. Why aren't we hearing from Jefferson?
No, Jefferson is my iPad.
Got it.
So, yeah, I will say, just talking about books, I finished reading the book The Midnight Library this week, which was just a really beautiful, it's a novel. It just sort of talks just sort of about the beauty of life. And I was really impressed with it. And just sort of your ability to make decisions. So if anyone's looking for a novel, I just wanted to recommend that. But
What's
yeah,
it called?
it's
The
called
Midnight Library?
The Midnight Library.
Yeah, that's cool. Okay.
But yeah, we'd love it if anyone wants to raise their hand and come up and talk about a resource, a book, something that they're loving.
And while we're waiting, Juliana, don't you have a shameless plug don't you have a talk tomorrow?
I have a talk this afternoon.
Oh, this afternoon. Uh-oh.
Yes. So in about 2 hours,
Oh, sorry about that.
I am speaking at the Society for Conservation GIS. It is a free, Society for Conservation GIS is a free conference. Their networking platform is fantastic. They prefer it to the Esri platform. So I am leading a session with Eva Reed called Putting Your Best Foot Forward. So I'm talking about your spatial sauce, and sort of how to leverage that. So your personal value proposition, and how to, at a very high level, how to leverage networking, LinkedIn, and a portfolio to put your career forward. And then once you have that spatial sauce and sort of are able to articulate the benefit that you bring, then Eva Reed is going to talk about how to then advocate for yourself within the workplace. So I think it's going to be a really great presentation. I have made myself a shirt that I am super excited about just for this event that has both animals and maps on it because it's a Society for Conservation GIS. I'm pretty stoked about my apparel today, and I wish this was video so you could all see it.
You're so crafty. Yeah. All right. So now, is Eva's? Are your talk the same, or are they distinct?
It's the same session. So they're technically two different talks in the same session, but it's the same, it's the same room or whatever, like in a conference.
Awesome.
Yeah. Oh, but we've got Mike up on stage.
Hey, I was trying to figure out my Bluetooth headset went off and now it's coming through my phone. I was trying to figure that out, but I had a couple book recommendations.
Yay!
Yeah,
Welcome
I'll
to
just do it short.
Clubhouse.
Oh yeah, it's my first time. I've been wanting to try it out for a while, but just haven't had the time.
After you get done with your recommendations, tell everybody about your new job. You got a new job, right?
I did, yeah, I started Monday.
Yeah. So tell everybody about how you got it and all that kind of stuff, because that's helpful for everybody, I think.
For sure. Yeah, so book one is Peak Performance by Brad Stulberg and Steve Magnus. It's a book about avoiding burnout. Has a lot of stuff about the stress rest cycle. So like how integral rest is while you're also doing positive stress and challenging yourself and whatnot. And then another book called Read by Sunny Bonnell and Ashley Hansberger. That one's more about, goes over some sort of personality traits like say obsessiveness that could potentially be bad, but could also potentially be very positive, and how to leverage that for your benefit.
What was the title of the second book?
Rare Breed, A Guide to Success for the Defiant, Dangerous, and Different. It was a really quick read.
I still didn't get the title. What was the title?
My bad. Rare Breed.
Rare Breed. Gotcha.
Rare Breed. Okay, I'm with you.
My Texas accent coming through a little bit, I suppose. Yeah, it's a really
Tim
good
should have
book.
been all over that then, if that's the problem.
I heard him just fine. I didn't have a problem. That's why I didn't.
All right. Thanks, Mike.
Well, now
Yeah,
let's hear about the job.
Yeah, so I actually I'm starting a job with Esri on Monday as a data management support specialist.
Never heard of them.
Yeah, right. Yeah, they're a small startup. Hopefully get big in a few years.
That's great.
Yeah, so
what do you think? What do you think your job entails? Like, what are they telling you they hired you to do?
Yeah, so I'm going to be sort of doing technical support for people who have their maintenance subscription, I guess. So about half my day is going to be working a phone, helping people troubleshoot their issues. The other half is going to be researching issues and sort of like trying to figure out, I guess, harder problems and then getting back to the customer after I have something to give them.
I started my career in Esri support. It was the best job. It was not the right job for me for a long time, but it was the best job for me in that moment, and I'm super grateful for it.
Oh, that's awesome. Did you feel like it kind of gave you the foundation that you needed to move forward to what you're currently doing?
Oh, yes, yes. Juliana came in not knowing what a file geodatabase was. She's not fully sure how she got the job. Um, so I came in with essentially zero GIS experience, was able to network my way into the job, and was able to show that like I was capable. And they invested a lot in terms of training and other things. But I just have a big thing for me is like developing empathy, and I just have a way better understanding of like the problems that people have, and and that just helped me both also see the range of issues that people have that they're trying to use GIS to support, but also you're dealing with people in really stressful moments, and that was just really, really rewarding.
Oh, that's super good insight. Yeah, I think it'll be really good to be able to interact with customers a lot more instead of just being at my computer just doing analysis by myself, which is what I kind of do a lot in my previous job.
Yeah, so it was. I'm just gonna put the plug out there. Esri was not the right place for me to make my extended career, but for those who are looking for a change, I highly, highly recommend the variety of support roles that they have, because at least when I started, which was now a while ago, it was an absolutely fantastic environment to learn and to grow and to and just you gain so many skills in a quick amount of time in that role.
Very cool. Yeah, I definitely don't want to take over the clubhouse here. I really appreciate the input. It makes me more excited to do the job.
You kind of went away. I can't hear you.
We
Yeah,
lost you, Mike.
He said
Uh,
he didn't want to take over the club. Oh, there he's back. I
yeah,
heard it, but it was really quiet.
yeah, I was saying I don't want to take over the clubhouse here, but I really appreciate the input about Esri. It makes me more excited to do the job that I'm starting on Monday.
yeah. Are you relocating, or are you doing it from home, or wherever you're located now?
Starting as full-time remote until Esri decides to move people back to Redlands. Or I'm
Okay.
working at Redlands location.
I really miss the pizza place in downtown Redlands. I'll say that. But Katie has now come up on stage. Hello, Katie.
Hey guys, I'm walking out to my car so I can get away from all the noise. um, it's been really interesting listening to your guys' conversation about the different books. I guess, one book that I wanted to throw out there to you guys, well, a couple. One is Naked Statistics, which is a really good book if you struggle with any kind of statistical information and trying to figure out what do these equation means, how they apply to real life. It's extremely readable because it's not just a bunch of equations. So I highly recommend that to anybody that wants to get more on the mathematics side and understanding that portion
I second
and
that. That's a
struggled
great
in
book.
math class. But otherwise, I would also recommend a book that really helped me kind of start Project Spatial and embrace my GIS leadership, which was Girls Stop Apologizing by Rachel Hollis. And it's geared towards women, so sorry guys, it's not language that's necessarily geared towards you, but maybe recommend it for any of the women in your life, but you certainly could read it too. But it's really just about embracing who you are and stop apologizing for your existence, and stop apologizing for being smart or having answers or any of that, and just really working on your confidence and why you might be lacking confidence in being able to use your voice. But that was one that really spoke to me at the time with some of the stuff that I was going through with family and everything, and just healing myself. And it really helped me kind of spring my career forward because I was finally using my voice more. And just in general, tons of entrepreneurial books and that sort of stuff. Like if you're stuck and you don't know what to do, start looking at what people that are entrepreneurs are recommending, because while it's not directly related to GIS, that portion is going to allow you to manage your project better. It's going to allow you to find ways to manage your mental blocks that you're having and discovering new things that are going on, managing relationships with people, all sorts of stuff. So if you're struggling and you're kind of teched out and you need something else to read, I would grab any kind of entrepreneurial book that reaches out to you, and it'll definitely help you increase some of those skills that you need to increase your career. So I'm Kitty. I'm done talking.
Katie, I know you do a lot of videos. Recently, you did a series on kind of GIS positions. Do you have any resources for that, or is that just your own experience on explanation of what a GIS tech or an analyst or manager should be?
A lot of it's my own experience, but I also took it off of jobs postings that are out there. I'm kind of like an average searcher of those. I just like to see what other people are posting for to see what's going on in the industry. But also Eurissa, I believe, had a job survey that was out a while back, and they kind of tried to standardize a lot of that information about what is a GIS tech, what's an analyst, what's a specialist, and that sort of stuff. So some of it comes from that as well.
Hey, Katie, I also wanted to tag on to what you were saying about Rachel Hollis. I'm a big podcast fan. I love listening to podcasts. I think they can be super helpful just because we can consume information that's helpful to us in times that we normally wouldn't be able to sit down and read a book. For example, Rachel Hollis has a really good podcast as well that I think it used to be under the same name, Girl Stop Apologizing, but now she's got the Rachel Hollis podcast. But she deals with the same issues like entrepreneurship and also just doing things as a woman that maybe stepping out of your comfort zone a little bit and why you should and how you can and all that kind of stuff. So I just want to put a plug in for podcasts generally too.
So I'm going to be the voice of dissent on Rachel Hollis, not to make this the Rachel Hollis bashing time. I think that her book has been really helpful. I think it's written from a place of extreme privilege, and that there's, I think that actually a lot of her ideas are really problematic. But I think what's also really hard about that is that her book has also just been really, really helpful for people. So I guess with all those things, I think it's really important to be critical of who you are taking in. And one thing I really love though is like to have a community like this where we are recommending books, and so that I may say like, hey, Rachel Hollis isn't my favorite person, but that Katie can say that Rachel Hollis, like that she's learned a lot from her. And but that as we consume our media, because time is something that is a precious resource, just to just think through, like, is this somebody who I agree with in general, or is it somebody who I'm going to say like I don't think I agree with them, but I really want to learn what their perspective is.
Now that and here's
Because
the thing.
you're not
Oh, sorry.
go ahead, Bonnie, you're up.
Well, I had to learn it the hard way because I may have told parts of this story, but I was invited to talk at a healthcare business woman data blah 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 blah. And so I was going to show up with my, well, how do you write about multivariate analysis? And it was fun. I had lots of great images and it made the math fun, kind of like the Naked Statistics book Katie was talking about. And like, so I walk in the room and the first woman who did it, it's all women. So the first woman who did it, I just thought that was a one-off. I mean, she just gave me a dead fish handshake. And I was thinking like, well, that was weird. And then it kept happening to me. And I kept realizing that a lot of these women didn't lead with their voice. Like they didn't necessarily have a presence. So here they are going out in the world and speaking about technical topics, but some people need to hear these things, these soft skills. I don't know. Sometimes they just need to hear it. That's why chick lit is so bad. And I never read it. I don't barely read fiction, but I certainly don't read the girl stuff like how to do but I just don't. I'm old too. I'm older than you guys, so maybe that's why I don't do it. But some people are at different places in their journey, and they need that Hollis chick just to kind of take a step forward. So yeah, I like that you spoke up, because sometimes I'm like scorched earth, and I'm like, no, but then I realize it's not. I know you'll be shocked to hear this. It's not always about me. I'm Bonnie, and I'm done talking.
Yeah, you guys make some good points. It's for me, what I got out of it was I was coming out of a divorce that was a very abusive relationship. And I needed somebody to tell me that it was okay to not be accepted all the time by everybody. Because I was so scared that if I did something, my friends wouldn't approve or my family wouldn't approve, and I would be shunned and exiled. And so at that point in my life, I really needed somebody to say, like, hey, just stop, do you, and if they don't like it, screw them. And I just needed somebody else to tell me that was okay to think that. And it really helped just kind of spur me of just like, what am I doing? Why am I letting myself talk to myself this way? And it it was just something that I needed at that moment. And I haven't read or listened to any of her other stuff, so I really don't know a lot about it, but I just know that that book was kind of a turning point for me of just being able to start the next chapter of my life. And so yeah, it's one of those things where I think anybody that you're reading, anybody that you're listening to, even us talking up here, um, always take it with a grain of salt. Take the things that work for your life and discard the rest, because you got to do yourself. I'm Kitty. I'm done talking.
Yeah, and Katie, I'm really thankful, that it was a book that was super helpful for you in a time, and that's what I've heard from a lot of women, is that it has been really helpful. So, um, um, yeah, that. But one thing I'm just really grateful for is that we're able to sort of get into these mini discussions. But what I hope that people are taking away from this is that all of us are sort of saying that like some level of like professional development books, or just sort of like understanding some of those soft skills, is super important in your career. So while Bonnie is just sort of like says that she's not hireable because of her personality, at the same time she's saying that like being able to give a good handshake, while as cliche as that sounds, like is actually really important in terms of advancing your career. Maybe not anymore, because like when was the last time you shook hands with someone? But that some of those things of just like being personable really does make a difference.
And really quick before we allow someone else up to speak, you know, there's an expression in ultra running, and one of the ultra running has helped me in so many ways. It made me a really tough chick, and that's why my thing is rub some data in it, because you fall on the trail, you rub some dirt on it, you keep going. There's no whining in trail running. And there's an expression that we all use: be where your feet are. And what that means is when you're out running 50 miles, you could sit there and be like, well, that was 49 to go, 48 to go, and just count. You would be miserable. Be right where your feet are in the moment where you are, appreciate the horizon, figure out what you're doing, figure out how your body feels. And it's the same way in business. Be where your feet are. Like, don't look at this person, don't compare your middle, don't compare your beginning to someone else's middle. Where are your feet? Where do you need to show up? And I say that to myself. If I was going to get a tattoo, it would be where your feet are. And then the other one would be, there's going to come a day when you can't do this. Today is not that day. And I find those to be very powerful when I'm feeling squishy on the inside, but tough on the outside. So thanks for bringing that up, Katie. I'm Bonnie, and I'm done talking.
Juliana, before you turn to Piyush, I have to just say thank you, Bonnie, because that's really, really, I think that's super important. Like, be where your feet are. And I do a little trail running, not as much as Bonnie, and and I fall more often than probably she does. But I got to tell you, Bonnie, I haven't fallen since you gave me that advice to prance like a pony. I haven't fallen since that time, so thanks for
Oh,
that.
no, I got to watch you run. When you come to Raleigh, we're going for a run.
For sure, for sure. I'm in. I'm in. I'm in. before the end of the hour?
Yeah, well, we have about 5 minutes left. So, Piyush, which I'm sorry if I'm saying your name wrong, you work in Earth observation, geosciences, and GIS. So, I'd love to hear your perspective.
Yeah, thank you so much for allowing me to speak on this panel. Actually, I'm a recent postgraduate. I'm very early in my career. So I come from a geology background, and currently I've done my master's in geoinformatics. And I actually first of all, thank you so much for all the books that you have recommended and all the discussion about personal development and life in general. um, a very small advice I wanted to take from all the senior GIS family members over here, related to my career, if I may.
Sorry,
Absolutely, yes.
I didn't quite understand the question that was there.
Uh, am I audible? Hello.
Yeah, you want to share some books related to your career, right, Piyush?
Ma'am, just some advice that I wanted to have related to my career,
Oh,
if
sure, bring
it's
it.
Sure,
if it's
absolutely. Yep, we've got about 4 minutes left. Would love to provide.
Sure, sure. I'll be quick. So what actually this because of this COVID and everything, the job market is really down here in India, and especially GIS is very in a very nascent stage here in India. So it's quite hard to find jobs related to GIS and all. But I was able to find a job, but it's actually in the insurance companies. You guys might be aware of the catastrophe modeling departments that these companies have. So I was able to find a job in that, and considering the fact that there are no jobs available right now, I'm actually like very much keen on switching back to my geospatial and GIS, something related to that. But as of now, if I'm like starting as my first job in catastrophe modeling, would it be like okay uh, in my career? Just wanted this to be clear. Thank you so much.
So I think
Are you
it can.
asking for? Oh, go ahead, Juliana.
Yeah, it can be really hard, sort of not fully understanding, your history and everything about you. The general advice that I give is that pivoting within your career is totally fine. I've been working for 10 years now, and I've pivoted a bunch of times, and so changing course within your career is great. It is fine. The other thing is that what really comes down to is your personal value proposition, which Bruce Buxton has a great sort of series of videos about that on LinkedIn. And really, what I would say is that it comes down to really being able to write and sort of tell a cohesive story about your career in terms of like why did you switch from one thing to another? Like I switched from working for the US military to working in consulting, which you might say like that makes no sense. But as I talk about it, people then begin to understand why I made that switch and how, I was really doing very similar things. So I think it really comes down to the story that you tell. But I don't know if other panelists have things that they want to share as well.
Since you said something about my personal value proposition thing, I think that's really important. It's really important to figure out what drives you and what kinds of things are at the core of how you serve other people. And I mean, so I think that creating some sort of a personal value statement or personal value proposition you can go back to once a week and review and say, am I still here? Is this still me? And am I still putting my best foot forward when I'm acting as this person? And then on a much more tactical level, I will just say that what I'm impressed with more than anything, we just hired several people where I work at Critigen, and some really great people. But the more we dig into our value proposition as a company and what the industry needs, keep your eyes firmly fixed on the data. It's about the data. The platform will be not very important, not very in very soon, and it's just all about the data. And when we run these rooms, one of the things that impresses me most is that it doesn't matter what we talk about. At some level, somewhere, we get back to the data. So keep your eyes on the data. That's what I would say.
And that's actually where I want to put a plug for Katie Scheuer's YouTube series, both on roles, but also the comment that she made about just like consistently looking at job postings. I'm always doing that to understand how the industry is moving, both in terms of where I want to grow, but also in terms of taking language, in terms of how I describe what I do. So there's a company that, you know, we do very different things, but I really love some of the ways that they talk about their work. So I've sort of changed some of the ways I talk about what I do because of this other company that, like, you know, does, like, they build widgets and I don't. So I don't know if that's helpful. But we are sort of past the top of the hour. Want to just give an opportunity for any other panelists to chime in on this? Or if not, then I'll close.
Well, just really quick, because job postings are like my Achilles heel. And it was one of the reasons why I was like, no, I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to wait to be picked. I'm going to do my own thing over here. And, that's just the end of it. The things they ask for are absolutely ridiculous. And I'm thinking, like, if I had stuff that needed to be coded, analyzed, whatever, I wouldn't sit there and tell someone, you need to do it in R, you need to do it in Python, you need to do it in this, you need to be able to use SAS, you need to do SPS. Who cares what the tool is? I just cannot. So in that regard, sometimes the only time I use it is to show people how important Python is, because Python is integrated like almost everywhere now. But other than that, if you read these things, you realize how ridiculous they can be. I'm done. Sorry.
All right, Juliana, we should end with that. That's fantastic.
All right. Well, I just want to thank everyone for coming. If you have entered into this conversation a little later, the entire conversation is going to get posted on YouTube in a little bit. But we meet every week at this time from noon to 1 Central on Wednesdays. To have a conversation about things geospatial. I am just really grateful and thankful for all of you for coming and just for having a deep conversation. So invite you to go to www.geospatialconnections.com and look forward to continuing our conversation.
Thanks, everyone. It's been fun.